Welcome to Lubbock City Council meeting. Today is September the 14th, 2021. It's 1:07 p.m. We are in work session this afternoon. We're glad you're either in the chambers or joining us through the magic of the World Wide Web or on City TV. We have a full day of business. We have no citizen comments for work session, so we'll dispense of item 1 and move directly to item 2. Our first item is to have what I expect to be final discussions on the proposed FY 2021-2022 operating budget and capital program to include all the funds of the city, included but not limited to the general fund, debt service fund, internal services, enterprise fund, special revenue funds, component units, related entities, debt and debt obligations, capital improvement program, and related and associated items. Seems not like that. That doesn't seem like a whole lot until you dig into it. But to get that started, I'll turn the microphone over to the city manager, Mr. Atkinson.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council members. Thought we would start today. We do have your presentation available. That, of course, is the presentation you saw last week. But I thought we would rather start, you held your public hearing at our prior meeting. At that hearing, we had citizens submit 3 comments to you, 3 questions. I have those and the answers to such, and then would also like to cover sales tax, as between the last meeting and today we've had another sales tax report. So we had citizens come to us to talk about what had initially been proposed in the budget as the comprehensive fiscal impact analysis. Remember, our discussion was that those dollars, yes, were still in the capital budget. They had been retitled. So just for the record, would submit that that capital improvement project is CIP number 2021022. The name in the budget upon which you will vote later tonight is Future Comprehensive Plan Implementation. It was proposed at $120,000. It remains budgeted at $120,000, so it is there. Another question, Council, this question was the one submitted to you in writing. And to paraphrase, it referenced a question about possibly having some sort of a consumption tax that would be related to those folks who do not live in the corporate limits, but certainly use the city services, roads, etc. There's not a good answer to that. Consumption taxes per se, literally, or even value-added taxes are not possible in Texas. But I would remind council and those listening, we do have the sales tax. So any good or service that is purchased in the city pays the sales tax. And that sales tax is not differentiated by my address is in the corporate limits, or it's in the county, or as we often know, it may be in eastern New Mexico. So would suggest to you that we do receive benefit through the retail trades and the service trades from that. I've been working with Market Lubbock trying to see if there's a good study out there that tells us what proportion of the sales tax comes from outside city limits. Right now, we don't have that. We'll keep working on it. But just know relative to that question, your sales tax is close to what we have to do that. And I think driving through the parking lots on the weekends would tell you that our out-of-town guests do contribute to the sales tax. Third question brought forward was a question on the city becoming a member, would note with what I've learned now, becoming a member again, of Tree City USA. So staff has worked their way through that. There's still a few details to sort out, but in brief, there are 4 requirements to be a Tree City USA. You have to have a board, part of whose responsibility is dedicated to the advancement of arborism. I think you have that, Parks Board. You have to have ordinances that speak to the care and the preservation of trees, and you do have that. You're required to have an overall investment of $2 per capita in items directly related to that, and that can be maintenance, care and feeding, planting, trees that are in the rights of way being managed, all of that kind of stuff. It looks like from what we've done in the past that we'll easily qualify under that metric. The final one is you have to host and participate in an Arbor Day celebration. So they'll continue to work on that. I do think that we will end up meeting those criteria as the budget's prepared today. And if so, we'll be back to y'all in the near future with that one. So Mayor, Council, those are the three questions that were posed during your hearing. If you have no further comment on those, I'll jump right into sales tax. It's really good news.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Atkinson. Council, any questions? Looks like Mr. Christian has a question or comment. Randy?
Yeah, Mr. Atkinson, we understand the sales tax, but we also have a couple other taxes maybe that visitors pay, like a hot tax in our hotels. Are there any other ones besides hot tax? Because I can't think of any that visitors pay.
Yeah, don't know that I could either. Hot tax is obvious, a very good one. There's very minor components, you know, mixed beverage tax that might be applied at a restaurant or something to that effect. But
Vehicle rental tax.
car rental concession tax on the cars, yes. Good catch.
Thank you, Mr. Christian. Council, any comments or questions on the budget? Okay, Mr. Atkinson, why don't you share the new information regarding sales tax?
Certainly. Council, each of you has at your sheet today a monthly summary on the sales tax. Note a few items. Number one, sales tax truly is the driver of your general fund budget. It contributes more to the general fund than does the tax levy. Report you have in front of you is based on the September collections or the September report. Just remember that this lags by 2 months, so the dollars were actually spent in July. This is the number 5, the fifth consecutive month of double-digit sales tax increases for the city of Lubbock. For the month, we report 13.4% above the budget item. And in dollars, that's just under $800,000, $797,000. Total collection then would be $6.7 million in change. Budget number was $5.9 million in change. These are just the 1 month. Overall, year to date, and this is fiscal year report, we're at $5.3 million over our budget. And we project that we're going to end up at least at $5.6 million over budget. Our last 2 months, we're still holding conservative. And that would be a 7.5% increase. Sum total, your budget was created, the budget you're currently in today, at $74.8 million, and we estimate year end at right at $80.4 million. How does that compare to your next year's proposed budget, the budget you consider later today? We took 8.1% or $6 million over the fiscal year 21 budget, meaning that we need to get to 80.8 during the next year, and we think we'll end this year at 80.4. So what had started as what appeared to be a somewhat aggressive estimate has really started to prove itself up very good. So certainly I know that Blue and I feel much better about the budget in front of you as those numbers get closer and closer together. Just as the contrast, again, for your new budget, we program $80.8 million in sales taxes and $74.3 million in your property tax. So again, it is your driver. With that, Mayor, I'll stop, take any questions. If council would like to see the presentation, we can put it back up as well.
Thank you, Mr. Atkinson. Council, any questions on the comments that Mr. Atkinson made on the sales tax? All right, final opportunity, Mr. Griffith.
Sorry. Mr. Atkinson, would you please repeat the final property tax?
74.3.
74.3. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Atkinson. Council, if there's no objection, we'll move to item 2.2 on our agenda. We are going to get an overview of the Texas Property Assessed Clean Energy Program, often called Texas PACE. We're going to get an overview, and I will ask Brianna Girardi to lay this out for us, please. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, Council. Thank you for the opportunity to visit with you all about this program today.
I am going to do very little introduction of the program. We have Charlene Heidinger with the Texas PACE Authority with us today, and she is definitely the expert on this program, and so I will reserve the meat of this presentation for her. But just wanted to give you a quick kind of overview of the problem that the PACE program attempts to solve. And so this is really focused on energy efficient building upgrades, both for new construction and primarily for existing buildings. As you know, especially in our construction environment today, these types of improvements on existing structures can be quite expensive. And so the PACE program provides a solution to that. This is a private financing tool that provides long-term, low-cost, 100% financing for energy efficiency, water conservation, and distributed generation projects. This private financing is done through a property assessment, and Charlene will speak more to the process of setting that assessment, but it's similar to how we look at PIDs. That assessment does go on the building itself and stays with the building for the life of the improvements that are made. So just want to reiterate, this is a fully privately funded program. There are no public dollars that are used in this program. We simply have to decide as a city, or you all have to decide as a city, that we want to be a participant in the PACE program. And so with that, I will introduce Charlene Heidinger with the Texas PACE Authority to you and let her introduce you to the program.
Thank you, Brianna. Charlene, welcome. We're glad you're here.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here. This is an effort that's been long in the making. I want to compliment your staff. Mr. Atkinson had a crew of people that punched, poked, ripped apart, questions this program. So I come with some confidence that this will be well reviewed by the city, and I really appreciate that. This is not a program you should create till you understand it. Your staff has vetted it, and your local business community is asking for it, and we're delighted to be here. I am the president of the Texas PACE Authority. We are a 501c3 that was created in 2015 with the realization that it was unreasonable to expect local governments to create this program, to create the bureaucracy and figure out all the details. So a group of 130 volunteers broke into 5 different working groups, created a program called PACE in a Box, and then Texas PACE Authority was created to be the administrator. But we see ourselves as doing this as a public service, and I hope you will see us as an extension of your staff. No taxpayer dollars are required. No bureaucracy is required. We perform these services on your behalf, and that means we're very tough on the front end to make sure these projects will be successful. And the cost of the overhead of covering our cost is either borne by grants and by user fees paid by the property owners who voluntarily access the program. So for us, the worst thing that happens is that people don't use it. And our biggest challenge is getting the word out and having people understand it. It's a wonderful opportunity, but it's different than traditional financing, and it takes people, I tell them, several presentations to get your arms around it. So this is an economic development tool, and that's all you're being asked to do, is to create a mechanism that gives a private property owner a private sector opportunity to work with a private lender to overcome the barriers for the kinds of equipment that make property more energy and water efficient. This equipment is very expensive, and it does pay for itself through energy and water savings, but it takes many, many years. The program can only be used for measures that result in energy efficiency, water efficiency, or creating power on site. You've got a lot of sun here in Lubbock, but it also can be used by factories and other hospitals and others for technologies called combined heat and power, microgrids, other things as well. The only properties that qualify are commercial properties, which include nonprofits, industrial properties, and agriculture is a subset of industrial, and multifamily properties with at least 5 units. So that, just think of an apartment complex with at least 5 units. Some states have this for homeowners, but not in Texas. This is designed to deal with more sophisticated property owners who understand what it means to put a senior lien on a piece of property. So everybody in your community needs to be involved. The program needs to be created by the city or the county before anybody can use it. Property owners need to understand it. They would take advantage of it, but they can't do that until there are lenders available. And while there is no shortage of capital, and there's a lot of capital coming from outside the state, it is our hope and our commitment to educate and involve local lenders from your banking and credit union organizations so that everybody in this community profits. We also want local contractors, architects, engineers, MEPs to be involved in the program so that instead of just constantly repairing old HVAC systems, they now have an opportunity to sell the upgrade. So the idea here is not just to fix up buildings, but to create economy throughout the city when that happens. So there are two ways to make money. You either sell more stuff, or more importantly, you lower your costs. And after February and the power disaster that happened throughout the state, there's so much emphasis on how we're going to protect supply. But the other half of that equation is demand. And we waste a lot of power and energy with old equipment, and if we can make our buildings more efficient, the demand goes down, but it also makes power and energy available for the growth and all the new folks that are moving here. So let me put this in another picture. I like pictures. That repayment tower on the conventional loan, traditional lenders find equipment loans very risky. They don't know how long a company's going to be in business. They don't know how long that company's going to own that building, and they can't come and take the HVAC system if you don't pay. So they want to be paid back in 5 years or less to reduce their risk. All PACE does, all the mechanism that you're being asked to create does, is knock that tower over. So we have a longer loan term, more installments, but they're lower. And as you can see, the owner can access the utility savings right away to repay those loans. Texas PACE Authority takes our role of quality control very seriously. And there is a requirement in Texas with this PACE in a Box program that's a little bit of a heavier lift than in some other states. We will not approve a PACE program unless an independent engineer validates that the savings resulting from these improvements are greater than the cost over the life of the assessment. These will not be approved unless they're cash flow positive. So what do? We act like we're part of your staff. We act transparently. We don't take any money from anybody involved in these projects other than the user fees that are laid out that everybody pays, or we grant funding. But we do education and outreach, and that gives me an opportunity to say, if you create this program, it's going to feel radio silent for a while we're out talking to your contractors and lenders and business owners. People can't use the program until they know about it and understand it. So it may feel quiet for a while. Add to that real estate deals take generally about a year, so it may be a while before you see impact, but a lot of work will be going on. So that's what we do. You establish the program, but there's no staff involved. You never touch the money. You don't guarantee the money. You've created the mechanism. And the payments flow from the property owner directly to the lender. The only other time, once you create the program, that you might get involved is if somebody misses a payment. And the risk reduction that makes the lenders interested in this program is the understanding that this is a senior lien on the property that the city holds, and if necessary, the city would collect a back payment of a failed payment installment in the same way you collect back taxes. So that means you would get attorney's fees, penalties, and interest. Your attorneys, your debt collection attorneys would do all the work if you want them to do the work. But you are cleared in the statute to make sure that you are made whole. Our job is to make sure that that doesn't happen, that on the front end, that these projects are qualified, that the owners are able to make these payments through the underwriting process, that all of our technical standards and underwriting standards are met. The private lender can add whatever underwriting standards they want, and then the third and perhaps most important protection is that if there's a mortgage on the property will not qualify for this program unless the mortgage holder agrees in writing. So these have to meet the mortgage holder's approval, the lender's approval, and our approval. So this is probably the toughest program, and if you hear complaints about it, it's going to be that we're too tough. And I would rather say no to a project than take risk. Okay, so in Texas, this is very different than some other states. We put a firewall between the government's role, which is the bottom row that Texas Pace Authority would do for you, and the property owner private sector role. We don't do anything that can be done in the private sector. So Lubbock property owners will have the control. They decide what they want to do, who they want to work with, how they want to do business, and we get involved once they put their projects together. So I'm really excited about this, and on October 21st, we're going to do a whole PACE day in the Barfield Hotel. This is, you may have seen this in Amarillo. 25 years this building has been empty like this. Developers came, they tried to turn it into condos. They just couldn't put the capital stack together. They couldn't make it pencil. PACE filled in that extra missing piece, and this opened earlier this month as a Marriott Autograph Hotel. And the developer is very quick to say he just could not have done it without that. But the other thing that it shows is that PACE projects often are complemented with historic tax credits or new market tax credits or opportunity zones. These can be very sophisticated for the larger projects. They can also be pretty simple for the smaller projects. But one other thing, besides putting this empty, beautiful historic building back on the tax rolls, this is the new permanent home for 55 hotel jobs in Amarillo. This was our first office building. What I want to show you here, this is HVAC and lighting, very typical. This is kind of the bread and butter, should be the bread and butter of this program. 1980s office buildings all need new HVAC. PACE can step in and make that possible without having to lay somebody off. Okay, so the blue line is PACE, cash flow positive from day one. The yellow line is what happens if you have to pay for it up front, and it'll take a whole 9 years before you break even. But if you look when you borrow money over 5 years with a bank, you add that interest rate, it takes that ROI out even longer. That's why we have deferred maintenance around the country. It's not that businesses are bad or incompetent, it's that they can't justify making these investments if they have to pull money out of the core business to do it. This is a project from last year. This building will be apartments in downtown Temple. We've done nonprofits. This one is in Houston. This is a 1970s office building right next to the medical center in Houston. We have moved, this has 60. On Monday, Tuesday, we had a busy day. Gainesville created the program Tuesday night. I was in Tyler. Smithville created the program Tuesday morning. And our chief operating office was in Laredo. They created the program also Monday night. So it is picking up as people can, as commissioners and council members, mayors and judges can pick up the phone and talk to others who have this program. And as projects close and success is created, it gets easier to show. Each one of the counties and cities with this program have a link on the website to a page that keeps track of the projects for that local PACE region and the economic and environmental impact. We've closed 171 projects. The first projects closed in 2017. Some days it feels like I'm running in jello and we're never going to get there, and other days it feels like, how have we accomplished this in such a short amount of time? But we've done this with the long road in mind, and so we are taking time to make sure that these projects are good. We're not in a race to see how many projects we can close. We want good projects, and we want a program that is successful 20, 25, 30 years from now. So the only way I can say that is we want PACE to be boring, right? That everybody uses it, that nobody thinks about it. The only way that can happen is if it's a uniform, high-quality program. So this is a win-win, win-win-win. We've done everything we can to reduce both your fiscal risk, your fiduciary risk, and it would be my pleasure to answer any questions that you have. But again, let me assure you that this This is the first time I've ever finished without my own personal gong going off. So I'm trying to figure out how to cancel. Yes, sir.
Charlene, let's go back to page, I think it's page 10, the Barfield, yeah. Other
Oh,
way.
too far.
Let's look at the Barfield Hotel.
Yes, sir.
I think it's good to go through an example. So there's some notes at the bottom. So take us through a little more of the details of how, why this made sense to the owners of that hotel to do this.
All right, I'm trying to remember how many millions of dollars it was to purchase this building. This is one of the first, so when PACE was adopted by the legislature, it was really focused on bringing these old buildings back to life. And the idea was, like the office building project, the owner needs help, we step in. What Barfield showed us is a new way that PACE is being used, and this is one that really attracts developers, and it's using PACE as part of the capital stack when you buy the building, right? So people who are buying these old buildings aren't just paying for the building, they're also raising the money to fix those buildings up. And they're gonna be short. And so one of two things happens. In the case of these beautiful downtown buildings, they walk away. But if they can raise enough capital to get it done, they have the choice of either filling the hole to do it correctly with energy and water efficiency, or they do what's called value engineering, and they cut out everything that people don't see. Well, that's all the energy and water efficiency. And they build a building that looks great, but they're condemning it and everybody in it after that to high operating costs, avoidable operating costs. Well, they're gonna have to pay for it one way or the other. And the idea behind PACE is put PACE in your capital stack because now you can afford it, build it right, and then not only will you save, you have the energy and water savings that benefit everybody in the building from then on. But what developers are discovering is that the PACE loan is often less expensive than mezzanine financing or more equity financing, which is really expensive to do it right. So when you knock out those part of those more expensive sources of capital and you replace it with PACE at a lower interest rate, they're also lowering their weighted average cost of capital to buy that building and fix it up in the first place. So those are savings I knew nothing about when we were working on this legislation. So that is part of what happened here. But in this building, this would have been outrageously expensive because there's no place for the ducting, for the air conditioning, so they had to use really expensive creative air conditioning. But this developer was really smart. All the lights in this building are LED, but he used 12-volt LED and was able to get really neat fixtures for that, things that I didn't even know about. But he will say, you put your capital stack together, so you might get new market tax credits, or you might get historic tax credits, both federal and state. We even have one project in Elgin that got a USDA Rural Energy for America program grant. And so we're trying to get everybody to use everything they've got. If your downtown management district has a facade grant, a lot of times those go unused because the owner has to do all the work, and then they have to come up with a 50% match. Well, PACE is 100% upfront financing. It can be the match. There are a lot of, we got everybody, don't do a project until you've talked to your utility provider. What are the incentives offered by the water utility and the power utility? So I probably more than answered your question, but that's what we're trying to do here.
Okay, thank you. That's a great example, and to me, it makes a lot of sense to be part of the capital stack, because if you're raising some kind of preferred debt at 6 or 7%, but could do a long-term loan at something half of that, it certainly,
yes, sir.
if you're the developer, it certainly makes sense.
Now,
Mr.
because these are assessments on property held by the local government, they stay with the land.
Right.
And this is one of the things that really makes these successful. So if you are someone who's going to fix up a building, but you want to sell it in a couple years, with PACE, you can make the first 3 years of payments, and the new owner buys the property, and this stays with the land to the new owner.
Mr. Atkinson, I think you had a question or a comment a minute ago.
Thank you, Mayor. Charlene, would you mind flipping over to slide 19? I think
Can you tell me what's on it? Because I found the, I'm sorry, I'm not seeing page numbers. Which,
Government, the
Keep-
local
keep-
government
keep going.
risk avoidance.
Right there.
oh, I thought I was over. There were a lot more slides here. No wonder I got done early.
Not a lot more. You've done great
Okay,
moving us
sorry,
through.
this
Do
is
you mind-
the most important slide
let's
for
walk
you
through
guys
this
to see. Sorry about that. Okay, so we sat down with TAC, TML, Conference of Urban Counties, tax assessor collectors when we put this program together. And it was very clear that this needed to be an economic development proposal that was paid by the users who take advantage of it. You're creating a mechanism that reduces the risk to the lender. And really what's going on here is the lenders look at the company and they loan against the ability of the company to repay. And that's important, but here we're loaning against the savings to the property, which is why we only approve projects that are going to be cash flow positive. These projects literally pay for themselves. But we want to make sure all of that is true to the greatest extent possible on the front end to make that happen. So this is a governmental function. We treat our role as a governmental function. The statute gives you governmental immunity because of that, and it also added immunity for anyone who works on this project on behalf of the city, that they can't be sued either. So we've also then limited your financial risk because I'm going to have questions for staff, but that's going to be it. There's no FTE impact or anything like that. On the fiduciary side, you don't want these to fail. And that's critically important to us. We see our bosses as the local governments, and we take that very seriously. And that means sometimes I feel like the church lady, because the lenders want to lend as much money as possible, and that's their role, right? And the property owners need as much money as possible. But our role is to make sure that this is about energy and water savings and that these are solid. But if something does go wrong, all your costs are covered in the collection. And you would not collect the entire PACE assessment. It stays with the land. The only thing the lenders can ask you to collect is the past due amount.
Okay. Anything else, Charlene, you'd like to add before we open up for questions?
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Okay. Questions for Ms. Haydicker? Ms. Joy?
I heard you use the word super lien. Are you saying that the lien that's created would be above a purchase money lien
The
or
lien that's
secondary
created-
to?
The lien that is created has the same status as a tax. This is because this is a Lubbock, City of Lubbock assessment, a voluntary assessment that is placed on the property. The owner is making the property liable to pay back this loan instead of the company, regardless of who owns that property. So it has the same status as a tax because it's due and owing to you. Now, this needs to be voluntary and successful in the marketplace. If there is a mortgage on the property, because this lien jumps ahead of the mortgage, the property will not qualify under the statute unless there is written consent by the mortgage bank. They can say no, and some of them do. And now that the program is getting underway, that conversation is getting a lot easier. I've always said with the banks, in fact, I went to the Texas Bankers Association and asked for their help to draft that provision because if these don't work in the marketplace, they shouldn't be done. But also have said to them from day one, we need you to be PACE lenders. And if you want to be senior to yourself, that's the best of all possible worlds. They're not there yet. These are long-term fixed rate loans, and they're done a little differently, and it'll take a while. But we've had 2 banks in Texas be PACE lenders so far, so it's starting.
Okay, so what I'm hearing you is in the state of Texas, the priority lien is obviously tax first, purchase money second, improvements third, okay? That's just the way it works here under current law. So what you're saying is that it would have the status of a a tax lien, except if there is a purchase money lien in place already, then the holder of that purchase money lien would have to consent to have that jump over it. Is that what I heard you say?
I'm going to learn something today. I don't know what a purchase.
When you buy a
Lien
piece
is-
of property? and
Okay,
you borrow
so the
money-
mortgage.
Yeah, it's a
No,
mortgage.
this is
But we call
senior.
it purchase money liens and
Thank you.
statutory.
I'm glad to know that. No,
Okay.
this is senior to the purchase money.
Except you just told me that, or told us, that the lender has to agree and consent for that to jump
Correct,
over
correct,
a mortgage or a purchase money lien.
correct.
Okay, want to be sure. Is there any contingent liability that the city would have to reflect because of the fact that if there's not a payment, or they miss a payment, then we have to do the collection, the foreclosure, whatever?
No, because you're not putting any budget. This doesn't affect your budget. It doesn't, because you're not issuing bonds to pay for these. You're not, it doesn't have anything to do with your credit rating. The money is private. In fact, the contract between the PACE lender and the city says, the city would say, lender, in exchange for providing the economic benefit in our community, you get the right to the stream of payments as they come in. You're not guaranteeing them, you're just saying when they come in, you get them. You don't ever touch the money, you're not guaranteeing the money, you're not responsible for making any payments ever. You do make the commitment, which I assume would be a phone call to your debt collection firm to collect if a payment is missed. But before that happens, the PACE lender needs to send 2 30-day default notices and notify the mortgage holder. And so in that case, the mortgage holder would probably come in and make the payment to keep the city out of it. But that could happen on the back end, which is why our underwriting and technical requirements are tough on the front end. If a building fails, it's not going to be because of their PACE loan.
Does the city, I'm trying to figure out, I understand that the lender would have a lien, okay?
Mhm.
The city, does it?
Actually, the city holds the lien.
Okay, that's
because
what I wanted to know.
The city
Who
has,
holds it?
because you're enforcing it under the statute, you have to hold it to be able to enforce it.
Okay, and if someone should default, then we would be in that position of having to foreclose if the lender decided they didn't
If it
want
came to that, but if they've paid their taxes and they haven't paid their PACE lien, you don't have to take the property. It'll just sit there until it sells, and it's the lender's problem. You don't have to take the property.
Okay, so we'd just be
You
holding.
might to take it for taxes, but you
Right.
wouldn't for this.
Okay.
Did you used to be a tax assessor collector?
No, I'm a lawyer.
I'm very impressed. You're making me work here.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you, Ms. Joy. Mr. Griffith.
Thank you. Charlene, to that point about the lender, more than likely, they're gonna get involved on that loan.
The mortgage lender?
Yeah. They're gonna.
Yes, sir.
Don't you think, I mean, 9 times out of 10, if
They're not going to
the
want.
loan gets to that
They're not going to
point-
want the penalties, interest, attorney's fees. They're going to do what they can to take care of it, and their underlying loan agreement, their mortgage agreement, is going to allow them to do that, to take
Okay.
it.
You said that, but right now, we only have 2 in Texas as far as lenders. that
I would say that
Are they,
probably most of our projects have lender consent because they needed lender consent. I don't have any idea how many projects died on the vine because they couldn't get lender consent. But the ones we have closed, most of them require lender consent because they have senior debt. 2 of the PACE projects have been funded by local banks. So Frontier Bank in Elgin, Texas was the first bank to make a PACE loan on the Elgin General Store, and that's the one that also got the USDA REAP grant. And then TFNB, Your Bank for Life in McGregor, which is Waco, has done one, and then they've worked with a PACE lender on a larger project. So it's starting.
good. I think a big component of this is the opportunity to truly improve energy savings. I mean, that's really what the number one goal is, I understand. But it makes a lot of sense on, obviously, a lot of these older properties. Makes a lot of sense. So I appreciate you bringing this to us.
Well, thank you. If you decide to move forward, I hope you will help me by letting me know who in your districts, organizations, Rotary clubs, whatever, neighborhood associations, if there's someone that would benefit by knowing about this, because that's really going to be the heavy lift, is the making people aware of it. So let us know who we should be meeting with. If you move forward, I hope you do. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Hold on a sec, Charlene. Mr. Christian?
Yeah, just a quick question. First of all, I'm very familiar with the Barfield building. I drove past it many times in my teen years. But I'm curious about the contractors. Is there some sort of approval process? We're talking about some pretty, high-end equipment to make this happen, to reach that level that you guys want it to. Tell me a little bit about vetting the contractors or helping the contractors make this happen. Thank you.
That is a great question, and the answer is not easy because we have no contractual relationship with the contractors. We, however, have a fairly detailed technical standards manual. So the working group back in 2013 of volunteers that put together the technical standards was chaired by the director of the State Energy Conservation Office. And it is still chaired by the new director of the State Energy Conservation Office. The contractors need to use that, so we train them. There are several webinars on our website. We have a list of trained people on our website. You can't get on our website unless you've been through a training. The challenge for us is we can't guarantee that somebody's a good contractor, only that they know our program. Their work must be reviewed by an independent third-party engineer. This is a Governor Perry requirement. We took that one step up and said it has to be a Texas licensed PE, they have to do a site visit, and they have to stamp their report. The technical standards manual lays out exactly the spreadsheet we want to see and what we want in the documentation on the report behind that. For a year now, the technical standards working group has been putting together a new edition, which I thought would be out by now, and they're wrapping it up. It'll be out shortly. But what they added to that is they call it a workbook, but they're a series of fillable worksheets where the math is done behind. So we are going to it's going to be much easier for the contractors to fill that worksheet out. They're going to be able to see whether their project works or not and go back and fiddle with it till they get it right. What comes out of that is going to go to the reviewing engineer in the same format that we want to see it at the end. So we think we're going to simplify things, make it easier for people to do the work, and lower the cost of all of that. And then what comes to us is reviewed again. We have a Texas PE with 2 finance engineering masters that we pay on a project-by-project basis to review every one of those. And I don't think Jonathan has ever approved one without asking questions. So it gets vetted by the independent reviewer. We vet it again. And same with the underwriting side. We get the underwriting from the lender. We review it, and then we send it off for a project review by an attorney. And then it comes back for the final green eye shade review, and then we close it. So there's a lot of work that goes into these. Most of the lenders would wish there was a little less work involved, but that's what we do.
Ms. Heidinger, you and I think others in town today, there's some interest in the community. Can you just sort of generically tell us the kind of folks you're meeting with in the community?
So I met with a bank today, and I'm very excited about that because really, in the long run, that is critical to the success of the program. Met with a significant nonprofit. I'm very excited about that too. Now, they know about the program. We'll step back. We don't develop these deals. All the people involved in those deals are going to have to sit down around the table and figure out whether it works for them. And it may or it may not. Also in the audience today are a number of renewable energy folks who have projects that they're very excited about. So you've got the contractor side, Here, you've got the financial side, and you've got property owners. And I really don't hold myself out as much of an expert on where any of those projects are, but there is significant interest. I think what I can tell you with great confidence is you're not too far out in front of your own business community. You shouldn't create the program for me, you should create the program for them.
Thank you. Mr. Atkinson, you've spent some time, Ms. Hadinger mentioned it, but you've spent some time working with staff on this and working with the PACE folks. A little bit of color on that, if you would, and then potential next steps for us if we wanted to adopt this, please.
Certainly glad to do that. Charlene has been beyond accommodating. I'm very pleased several of the questions that you've asked up here today, I've asked her previously.
Practice run.
We've also, in addition to working with her, there's excellent literature out on the internet about this. We've gone back and read state statutes. I've had the opportunity to meet with people in our community that are interested in the program. Just like I heard a bit of today, the piece that Charlene once described this to me is, think of it as an economic development program, but it's all done with private dollars. Okay, I like that, and it makes good sense. So what are we doing, and what is our role as the government? And the way I've finally come down to it is it is setting that PACE lender up for success, minimizing their risk, thus allowing them to drop the cost to the project. So I took that and I went back to one of the individuals we had met with that's interested in the program for what I would consider medium-sized projects, redevelopment projects. Okay, so if that works, what does it do? Tell me where that sets them out. And I thought he had a great answer to that. He said, number one, if you think of redeveloping an older property, by definition, everything that you have to do at a minimum is what's listed in this program. Those pictures of the bar field are perfect. It didn't have glass in it. It didn't have storefront in it. It was open on the roof. There was no building envelope as we speak. She talked about the low ceilings. The way those floors were built in that particular building for the time is built without air conditioning, had heating in it. There's no way to run ducts in it. So you're going to face those in any of those deals. PACE is going to fund that and fund it at a lower cost. It's all basically equipment loans. And what we would think of as our senior lender, whether it be purchase money, mortgage lender, whatever, why would they want to do it? The value of their collateral just went up, but not on their nickel.
Or their risk.
Right. So they may have started out investing in a project that when it was finished was worth $750,000. And by the time the PACE work is done on it, it could be a $900,000 property, but they didn't loan that difference. But they took the value of it on their collateral. I asked her, show me some of these that have failed. I've always had better luck trying to understand things by seeing where did they go wrong, and thus how do we avoid doing that. Programs have been very successful. They've not had one have to go to a sale. But if it did, number one, you're not required to say next Wednesday morning on the courthouse steps, we're going to go collect a $25,000 assessment on $1 million building. You're not required to do that. You have the authority to do that if the lender requests you to do that. They've got time to cure that, and it could be cured to the benefit of what would have been the original senior lender. I'm struggling with the terms, but that original lender. So I think myself and the staff have gained a great comfort in it. The points that we had really locked up on as far as trying to understand it, she's helped us work through that. I think meeting with the individuals in the community that want to take a crack at this, they're not guaranteed to get it, has helped a bunch. The third-party engineer is a big deal to me. This program's not, at a very high level, it's not horribly different than what used to be the old ESCO programs that were running around the state in the early 2000s. Those were a third party would lend money, we'll gain energy efficiency, you pay me back your savings, and maybe this will outlast the payment stream. It was missing what they're doing here. So when that project comes in, and Charlene also said, and correct me if I'm wrong, merely meeting minimum standards doesn't qualify you for PACE. Is that correct?
Yes.
So when they're looking at their energy efficiency, all the components of it, or self-generation, they've got to go above that bare minimum. That third-party engineer You've got a licensed person putting their stamp and seal on a document that says, for this amount of money, generate this amount of savings, and it lives past the life of the payment. They've really worked hard to lock it up. I like it.
Okay, so if we wanted to move forward, how would we do so?
We would need to notice we have to publish a report on the internet. We have to give resolution of intent, so it's a council action. We have to hold a public hearing. And then ultimately, you would have two final actions after the hearing. One, yes or no, we will do the program. We'll create it here in the city of Lubbock. And number two, and I strongly recommend we follow the model here where we would engage Texas PACE to actually take over and to operate that program for it. You could do it in as little as 2 meetings. You could stretch it farther out if you chose.
Okay, so council, a couple of us have been in on, Mr. Griffith and I have been in on a meeting where we, and I've been in a couple more with Mr. Atkinson as he's tried to explain it to me. I'd like to give each of you a chance to dig into this a little bit more on your own and to share your, maybe ask questions, share your thoughts with staff, and we can then determine a next step. I do know that there is a demand in the market, and likely you may hear from some of those folks that have an interest in moving this forward. Okay. Anything else, Mr. Atkinson? Ms. Haydinger, anything else from you?
No, sir. Thank you for your time. Really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate you very much.
Thank you.
Our final item in work session today is item 2.3. It's to get a report on the Lubbock Book Festival. Stacy McKenzie is going to bring that to us today. Good afternoon, Ms. McKenzie.
Hello. Thank you for having me today. Get myself going here.
It's good to see you.
Good to see you too. It's been a while.
I think Mr. Griffith saw a book festival here. He's probably got his library card with him. He's likely to pull it out at any moment. So
I'm not going to do a library card check today, so that's
Okay,
all right. I'm so glad we can joke about it now. I'm so happy to be here today. Thank you very much for having me, for listening about our Lubbock Book Festival. It's been a few years since we've had one, and we talked about it for a couple years. Wasn't feasible, obviously, last year, but we are going to have a Lubbock Book Festival, a little over a week and a half. We're very excited. Before I get started, I'd like to introduce my committee partners and my partners. We have 2 representatives from Literacy Lubbock here. That's Julie Laughlin and Elizabeth Laughlin. And we also have the president-elect of Caprock Writers and Illustrators Alliance here, KJ Waters. And we have been working very hard to put this together.
if you guys would y'all stand up, please?
Yes, please stand up.
Thank you very much.
They didn't know they'd have to stand up, so I'm very happy to be working with them. Let's see, oops. There we go, let's try that. There we go.
You're back.
Okay, we are kicking off our event with what we're calling a Prologue Party. That is going to be Friday, September 24th from 7 to 9 p.m. It is a ticketed event only. We will be sending out a broadcast to the city for discounted tickets for city employees later today or tomorrow. So we're very excited to be able to open this up to the city. In addition to that, we are going to be inviting the donors for Literacy Lubbock. This is going to be their main fundraising event for the year. It is the library's one of the library's main signature events that we're developing. And then, of course, Caprock Writers Alliance is a wonderful opportunity for all of their authors to showcase their talents. This event, this Prologue Party, is going to be at the newly remodeled Fraser Alumni Pavilion on TTU campus. If you haven't been there, it's absolutely beautiful, gorgeous. It's been a pleasure to work with them. Cocktails and hors d'oeuvres will be served. And we have musical entertainment, which is D.G. Fluellen, who I grew up in Lubbock and watching, so we're very excited about having him. And we also are having a silent auction there for fundraising, but you can see that we have got a host of very prolific and wonderful sponsors that are sponsoring this event, the Prologue Party, and the actual panels throughout the event. And I really have Elizabeth to thank for that. She is in charge of fundraising and development for Literacy Lubbock, so she's done a great job on that. At the actual event, which will be at Mahon Public Library, all of these activities are free, and we are using every darn space of that library that we possibly can. We're actually moving furniture out of certain spaces to make sure that we have enough spaces for all of this. We have 50 author tables, 7 author panels and programs, including author signings after those events. The panels include romance authors, memoir writers, local Lubbock one. We've got young adult authors, so we've got some incredible panels with published authors there, all professionally moderated. We will be having writers' workshops, so if any of you have the writing bug, you can come and find out how to work with your 5 senses, to play on history, to write the perfect romance novel. There you go. Yeah, okay, we're getting some... we are having crafts for all ages. Some of these are discarded book crafts, so we're trying to tie in all of that. We also are having entertainment on the lawn, is what we're calling it. We've got musical entertainment, we've got guitarists, we've got story times with full costumes. We have stormtroopers who will be throughout the library. It's going to be very exciting. Some other surprises there. We've got Fancy the horse, which is Mr. Dahlstrom's horse. He's one of our children's book authors who's going to be doing a panel and bringing his horse, so it's very exciting. We are having food trucks. We're having a bunch of food trucks each day in the parking lot behind Mahon. We have ordered picnic blankets so we can make sure and pass those out and make sure everybody has a nice picnic on the lawn with their food trucks. Costumes, like I mentioned, various costumes, and the stormtroopers, if I didn't mention them. We are having a cookbook nook where we'll have an author come and talk about how to make your own cookbook, the process. It's a very popular thing that people would like to do, but they don't know how to do it. And we have a lot of groups around town that I noticed haven't published a cookbook for their organizations in a while, so we're hoping to get them to come out. And if that wasn't enough, we are doing this in conjunction with our Friends of the Library, and they are having their Friends of the Library sale this same Friday and Saturday. So that was my good idea. So we've got a built-in audience right there. Also in the VIP bags, which are for the ticket sales to the event, you get 5 FOL bucks in there. So there's another bonus. Sunday, we are looking at a specialized Children's Literacy Day to focus on children's books, children literacy. Again, we'll have those same 50 authors. We have 3 panels that day, including Karen McKay and Mr. Dahlstrom, and Tiffany Thompson will be there to talk about children's books. Myself and another library are presenting on what makes a children's book have those STEAM and STEM items that are really important for early childhood literacy, both for parents to learn about and authors to know what makes the library choose your book to go on the shelves. Again, crafts, this time focusing more on the children's crafts, entertainment on the lawn, food trucks, more costumes. So we're really excited about everything going on there. And again, we are taking every space we can at the library. We are stuffing it full of authors and panels and workshops and great information. We have a author's lounge, which will be upstairs, and the VIP badges, tickets to our Prologue Party, get you into that lounge to hobnob with the authors, have some snacks, have some exciting things. We have lots of surprises going on as well. We hope you all will come to the event.
Ms. McKenzie, thank you very much. We'll let Mr. Atkinson go first. He looks like he's got his button pushed. You have a comment, Jared?
Very pleased with their excitement. Glad we're doing this. We had to skip it a year ago. Yeah. It's fun to see things happening.
Yeah, I echo that. I normally go last, but I want to go first on this one because I think it's we need a book festival, and we need a really, really, jamming book festival. And so I'm glad we're getting it restarted, and we'll make sure we do all we can to make sure certain that folks know about it.
You bet.
Okay? Yeah. Council, any other comments? Okay, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much.
Okay, that takes care of our work session agenda. Council, let's go through the pulls for the consent agenda tonight. Mr. Atkinson, you may have to help me with this. I think I've got it right. We've taken 722 off the agenda. Is that correct, Jarrett?
That is, it will reappear on your September 28th agenda.
Okay, then we've got a pull on 733 single, individually, and then a group pull on 734 through 740. Is that correct, Mr. Atkinson? Is that it?
That is.
Okay. 734 through 740 are related items, and it was suggested that we get an overall briefing on those. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So 722 is off, 733 by itself, and then 734 through 740 as a group. Any questions? Okay, we do have need for, and are posted for executive session today for the purpose of consulting with city staff regarding pending or contemplated litigation or settlement agreements, and to hold consultation with attorneys under Section 551.071 of the Texas Government Code to discuss the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property under Section 551.072 of the Texas Government Code, to discuss personnel matters under Section 551.074 of the Texas Government Code, and finally, to discuss the deployment or specific occasions for implementation of security personnel or devices or security audit under Section 551.076 of the Texas Government Code. It is 2:09. The Lubbock City Council is recessed to executive session. Good evening. Welcome again. It's 4:47. Today is Tuesday, the 14th of September, 2021. Lubbock City Council is back from executive session. We will have our ceremonial items before gaveling our regular meeting in. We've got a full chambers. Thank you so much for being here with us today. We have a lot to celebrate. We've got a lot of work tonight in front of us, but it hopefully will conclude our budget, which is probably the most significant thing this council does every year, along with our staff. And so it's a big milepost in that regard. Tonight, we will, as is our practice, open our meeting with an invocation, followed by the pledges. The Mayor Pro Tem will lead our pledges, and to lead our prayer tonight is the senior minister at First Christian Church, right down the street, Paul Carpenter. Paul, welcome back. Everyone, please rise.
Let's pray. Loving and Holy Father, we come to you, and for the sake of your Son, Jesus, we know you always hear us when we pray. Lord, we pray a blessing over this council as they make decisions that will shape the next year. We pray, Lord, that you would give them wisdom. We also pray that you would bless their time, that it would be used efficiently. We pray, Lord, for all the work that's been put into this budget up to this point. Bless us, oh God, we pray. We pray a blessing over the citizens of this great city. We pray that you would restrict evil in our city, that you would promote good, and that together we could flourish. Bless the religious organizations in our town to be of one mind and heart, that together we could pull on the same side of the rope. And tonight we ask the power of the Holy Spirit to fill and be at work in this place, that your will would be done on earth as it is in heaven. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Please join us in the pledges to the American and the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for
So it's not very often that we get to open a council meeting with some singing and dancing, and we're going to do that tonight. But first, I'm going to read a special proclamation. I want to just, Councilman Chidas is the effort behind this and got called out of town today on family business, and so I'm standing in for Juan tonight, and I know he really wishes he was here. But we're going to celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month and recognize Fiestas de Llano for the work they do in our community. You know, the Hispanic heritage is woven through our community and all we do. I mean, what would a week up on the 11th floor be without some really good queso and some chips? And I'm not trying to stereotype, but we all enjoy food that was brought here by the Hispanic heritage in our community, and so many other things. And so it's cool to stop and pause and recognize this weekend. Fiestas del Llano will be celebrating the 16 de Septiembre, so Mexican Independence Day, and celebrate it every year. And you know, they started doing that as a group in Lubbock in the 70s and are still doing that. So we recognize that. And you know that celebration will include traditional music and art and dancing, and of course the parade. So it's important to our community. And I'm just glad to get to do the recognition tonight. It's also, I think, important that, thanks, that I mentioned that Maggie Trejo is here tonight. Ms. Trejo served on this very council many years ago, was a pioneer in our community. And we're always grateful for your service. And so, yeah, thank you so much. Lala Chavez is sort of carrying that mantle today as she serves on the school board. And Lala, thank you for being here. And there's a number of leaders from our Hispanic community that are here. And so we're thankful. We're so thankful for all of you. So I would like to ask the leaders of the Fiestas del Llano to come up, please, if you would. And we're going to read this special recognition, and then we're going to have some music and dance, okay? Okay, so this is a special recognition. They're scared to get too close to me. Whereas Fiestas del Llano, Inc. has sponsored Fiestas Patrias for 34 years and will uphold the proud tradition again this year by celebrating El 16 de Septiembre, the 16th of September, known as Mexican Independence Day. And whereas Fiestas del Llano, Inc. sponsors Fiestas Patrias to celebrate Mexican independence and to bring awareness of our public pride in the Mexican mestizo culture, and to honor and remember those who fought and died so that Mexico might be free. And whereas the 2021 El 16 de Septiembre celebration will take place this weekend on September 18th and 19th, and will feature traditional music, art, and dance, and the Fiestas del Llano Parade. The theme for this year's celebration is Siempre Recordando Nuestra Cultura. Now, Juan would have done a lot better job, so please don't tell him how miserably I failed, okay? Thank you. Always remembering our culture. That's what that means. And whereas we celebrate all of National Hispanic Heritage Month from September 15 to October 15th, and we express gratitude for the innumerable contributions Hispanic Americans have made to our society, our state, our nation, our city, and we celebrate their rich and vibrant traditions of faith, family, and community, which are traditions that are woven into the fabric of our community and enrich all of our lives. And whereas it is fitting to recognize Fiestas del Llano as they proudly celebrate El 16 de Septiembre, as well as to recognize Mexican Independence Day as a time to proudly celebrate the history, heritage, and culture of the Mexican Mestizo people. Now, therefore, we, the mayor and the city council of the great city of Lubbock, do hereby recognize Fiestas del Llano and celebrate our thanks and best wishes during this year's celebration of Mexican Independence Day here in Lubbock. This special recognition is dated the 14th day of September, 2021, signed by the mayor and the members of the Lubbock City Council. Please help me recognize. Maybe make a few comments, tell us a little bit more about what's going to happen this weekend, and then we'll have some music and dance, okay?
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, City Council, for the recognition for today. We are proud to continue this tradition that has started way back. I remember when I was 5 years old. I won't tell you my age, but when I was 5 years old, we would gather at the park and celebrate this special occasion. We want to thank Father Martin as well, because we are collaborating with Our Lady of Guadalupe this year. And it will begin on Saturday with the parade down Broadway at 10 o'clock. And then Saturday will continue at 5 at Our Lady of Guadalupe at 1120 52nd Street. And then Sunday we'll continue with the big long day at the same location from 9 a.m. until 8 o'clock at night. Lots of food, lots of entertainment that you'll be able to be with us and celebrate this special occasion. Thank you.
Okay, no, hold on. Y'all can't go sit down yet. Hold on. We're going to get a picture here in a minute, but we're going to wait. We're going to wait because we're going to have our special entertainers join us. So, Dennis, who's going to tell us what's coming up right here? Come on, guys, y'all come up here.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council, guests. We're actually a bunch of different mariachis from here in town. We have Conrad Bernal with Mariachi Mexico Lindo. I'm with Mariachi Mexico Lindo. Mariachi Gema, Jose Garcia, Juan Garcia, Talia Ramos, and Frankie Tovar, who is with Mariachi Mi Tierra and Mariachi Estrella. We just got together. We at the last minute, we apologize. We're not dressed alike, but we're close enough. Would you like to play some? So, in honor of Mexican Independence Day and what we're celebrating here today, we have a song for you guys. Ready?
I bet you do. No, stay right. No, you can't leave yet. So we got a special dance, I believe. Yeah, yeah. We have a special dance, and then we're going to take some pictures, okay? These are my new friends. They didn't ask me to dance with them, though. Council, while you're down here, Council, if you want to join us for the picture, you're welcome to. Leaders of the Fiestas de Llano, if you come back up, let's get a picture for the whole group. Okay, come on, Father, get up here. We need all the help, divine help we can get. I in particular, I do. Yeah, we all do.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have one further special recognition tonight. We're able tonight to recognize some of our own, our communications and marketing team. And I'd like to turn it over to the city manager to do the honors. Mr. Atkinson?
Thank you, Mayor. We're going to start a short video. Let Lauren get that teed up for us. Okay. Mayor, council, members of the audience, tonight we have an opportunity to recognize one of our internal teams. This is a team who has been judged by their peers on a statewide basis, and those peers have awarded to our own city communications and marketing department 3 awards at the Texas Association of Municipal Information Officers Conference, sometimes referred to as TAMIO. I'm going to ask the team to stand up one at a time as I read their names. Lauren Adams, Taryn Perkins. If y'all just go ahead and come to the front, we'll all be up there with you in a moment. Alicia Rodriguez, Curtis Spivey. Is Mike out with us, or is he making all this happen? He's making all this happen. We can imagine that Mike Robles is here with us tonight. And of course, their leader, Miss Lacey Nobles. So, they have just been through the annual TAMIO conference, and the group in front of you today, Council, won 3 awards in 3 different categories. This group received 3rd place for their solid waste superhero video, and it will roll up on the screen if it hasn't already. The one that's up there right now is 2nd place. This is external communications based on the full-scale multi-platform COVID-19 vaccination campaign. And that campaign may well be the longest running single campaign we've ever done, as it is not over yet. And finally, this group took 1st place, best use of social media unplanned, for their post during the winter and ice storm we had in January. This group is quick to respond. They're able to put together informative, sometimes humorous. I think some of us saw the post of the cartoon character chasing the snowplow around. They're quick to respond during weather, other events that affect the community. And as it relates to our vaccination campaign, that post received more positive engagement than any single item the city of Lubbock has ever put out. The final fun fact, the 1st place best use of social media unplanned, that is an award that has only been in existence for 2 years in the state of Texas. And the team in front of you today has actually won that, both of those 2 years. So we're very proud of them. Group, congratulations. Appreciate what you're doing. Keep doing it. Council, if you wouldn't mind, if we could go down front, we'll get a photograph with the group. I hope we pass the camera off, Alicia. I don't know who might have it. Robbie Wallace. Okay, let's do that real quick, and we'll jump back to business. Bill, congratulations. Bill up front, too.
Pie in our face. Yeah, I noticed that. But I do like the Baby Yoda deal. That's cool.
You have to back way up, Robbie. Get it?
Did you get it?
You gotta get 2.
Thank you.
The next item on our agenda for ceremonial items this evening is board recognitions. As you know, we have almost 50 boards and commissions ran by citizens and to do various things within the city. And we're here to recognize several people we just recently appointed to Public Improvement District, or what we call PID boards. And I'm not sure who all's here, so I'll call a few names to see who we've got. Shelley Lee. Okay, Shelley's not here. Chris Berry. I have not seen Chris. Zach Tollett. Is Zach here?
Zach's in the back.
Zach, all right. Mike Snyder? Mike's here, cool. Austin Lear? All right. Well, when we made these appointments, we appointed people to the Quincy Park Public Improvement District, and these three gentlemen serve on the Upland Crossing Public Improvement District Advisory Board, and then we had one more appointment to the Valencia Public Improvement District Advisory Board. So get all these sorted out here, and you're all presented with these certificates, and I'll read one of these. It says, "Greetings. The members of the City Council reposing special trust in the integrity of each one of you, hereby appoint you to the Upland Crossing Public Improvement District Advisory Board to act within the jurisdiction and authority prescribed by the City of Lubbock in such capacity. It's dated today. It's signed by the mayor and all the members of the Lubbock City Council." So, Mike? Thank you for your service. Congratulations. Congratulations. Thank you very much. Awesome. Congratulations. Thank you very much for your service. Let's, we get a picture right here. Awesome. Thanks for being here.
Mike, Zach, Austin, we really appreciate you guys. You represent about citizens that serve on about 50 boards and commissions that allow us to get our work done. So we couldn't do it without you, and we're thankful you're here. It's 5:14. I'll call the Lubbock City Council to order in our regular meeting. The first order of business tonight is item 5 on our agenda, citizen comments. We had no citizens sign up to speak this evening, so we'll move to item 6. Item 6 is our minutes from previous meetings. The minutes from the July 20th special city council meeting at the Electric Utility Board, July 28th, both of these in 2021, special city council meeting at the Lubbock Economic Development Alliance, the August 9, 2021 special city council meeting at the Lubbock Police Department East Patrol Division, ribbon cutting, and the August 10, 2021 regular city council meeting. Those minutes were all included in our board packet. They begin on page 123. I would open the floor for a motion to consider those minutes. Ms. Joy?
Move to approve.
Thank you, Ms. Joy. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Massengill. Council, these minutes are in our agenda book. Are there additions or corrections to the minutes? Okay. All those in favor of approving the minutes as presented, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed by that very same sign? The motion carries 6-0. We'll now move to the consent agenda. Items that are considered to be routine and enacted by one motion without separate discussion comprise the consent agenda. If the council desires to discuss an item separately, that item is removed from the consent agenda and is considered in that manner. Tonight, we're taking item 722 off of the consent agenda. We'll move it to our next regularly scheduled meeting. Then we will consider 733 separately. Following that, we're going to pull items 734 through 740. They are similar. We'll get a briefing on all of them at one time and then consider those with one vote. Council, is that, I think those are our notes. Is that correct? Okay. I'll open the floor for a motion to approve the consent agenda, save item 722, which has been moved to the next meeting, and items 733, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, and 40.
I'll make the motion to approve, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Massengill. Is there a second? Thank you, Mr. Christian, for that second. Okay, Council, we got a motion on the floor to approve the consent agenda, save 722, 733, at 7:34 through 7:40. All those in favor of that motion, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed by that same sign? Motion carries 6-0. Okay, let's move now to item 733. It is on page 586. It's a resolution from Solid Waste regarding an interlocal agreement with Texas Tech University to provide a drop-off location. Brenda Haney is our Director of Public Works. She is here tonight to give us a bit of background on this. Brenda, take it away.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for having me here this evening. This is an interlocal, you got me flipped over here. I understand. I understand. This is a interlocal cooperation contract between the city and Texas Tech University. So quite simply, this program is between us and them to establish a recycling program for them on their campus. Many of you will remember they had a program at one time that was mothballed during COVID, and they had some other concerns. They reached out and asked if we would be interested in working with them cooperatively. So we laid out some specifics for that program. So they will staff and haul, their staff will haul materials to that drop-off from some of their facilities. They will be responsible for maintaining that site, and they will market it to the members of the campus, whether that be students or staff or faculty. We will provide the containers starting tomorrow, and then we will maintain and sell those. We will haul those materials to our processor, and then we will sell those. They wanted to maintain their status as a cool school through the Sierra Club, and I can't blame them. Everybody wants to be cool. And we will get to receive the revenues from any of those commodities that we market for this program. This, I think, is a fantastic way to begin this relationship between us and Texas Tech as we continue to look at demands for recycling in the community. And this will help us. If you recall, we've got a facility over at 19th and Quaker, and it has seen a huge uptick in participation. This will take some of that burden off of that because this is the most closely related drop-off center. This is located on their campus, as I mentioned. More specifically, if you'll look to the right-hand side there, over at kind of just off of Marcia Sharp, 9th, Hartford, Flint are all kind of in that area. Let's see if I can drive here a little bit. This is Hartford. This is their physical plant right here where that facility is located. This is kind of an existing picture where all of those cones are, and they've been sitting for a couple of months. We'll be setting dumpsters tomorrow. So they will begin marketing. They are looking at our program so they can mirror and replicate our marketing so we have a nice synergy and energy between the two programs. We'll get going on this tomorrow and off and running. That I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, council, questions for Ms. Haney? Brenda, where else can citizens recycle other than the Tech campus and 19th
So
and
we
Quaker?
have a total of 6 unattended drop-offs that are located largely at our United and Market Street partners. And then we have 4 attended facilities. There's one on North Quaker, there's one on Municipal Drive, there's one at 84th and Avenue P, and there's one on Milwaukee. And those all take the same items, but they also allow residents to take other items, organic materials like tree branches, metals, large bulky items that you can't, should not be putting in your dumpsters, like sofas or refrigerators, et cetera. And at our 84th and P site, we accept our household hazardous materials.
Like
So
paint?
Paints,
Like oil-based paints?
chemicals that you might have. We have a reuse center there. So if you were overzealous in your purchase of a chemical and you had great ambitions and you realized you didn't really need that much or weren't going to do that project after all, take it there. If it's still in good condition, we'll put it on the shelf and other people can come in and take those items and save them from purchasing that. So,
Okay, great.
fantastic program.
Okay. Ms. Patterson-Harris.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a question, Ms. Haney.
Yes, ma'am.
What does this do for the means that we already have with regard to working with the neighborhoods and gathering a lot of those items? Does this impact any of that?
This program should not have, it may have an impact with some of our students as they're moving in and out. This would be a nice opportunity for them to utilize one of these facilities to take, as an example, we're looking at adding cardboard to this, which is not at our traditional unattended facilities. So those TV boxes that don't fit very nicely in our in our dumpsters would also go very nicely at our drop-off centers.
Okay, I would just want to know how it would impact what we're doing and what we deal with. Let's put it that way.
This is a bonus and an add for us, and this gives us another 40,000 or so participants that we can target.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Patterson-Harris. Anything else for Ms. Haney? Thank you, Brenda. We appreciate
Awesome.
it.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Council, is there a motion to begin consideration of item 733? Thank you, Mr. Griffith. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Ms. Joy. Council, we have a motion and a second to approve item 733. Is there further discussion? All's in favor of that motion, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed by the very same sign? Motion carries 6-0. Okay, let's now move to item 734. It begins on page 600. These 7 items, 734 through 740, are items regarding grants with our public health department. And we'll ask Catherine Wells to come and give us a bit of background. Ms. Wells, good evening.
Yes, well, thank you, Council. Good evening, everyone. Items 34 to 38 are a set of grants issued from the Texas Department of Health and Human Services that support treatment for individuals with substance use disorders. The grants total approximately $2.2 million, and all of this funding will be passed through from the city to our 3 contracted providers. And those 3 contracted providers are Plainview Serenity, that's located in Plainview. However, they also have services here in Lubbock, Grace Manor, which is an inpatient and outpatient service provider here in Lubbock, and Senacor in Amarillo, who provides both inpatient, outpatient, and detox services. So all of these grants will support our health department effort and our work getting people who are at risk for substance use into treatment. And then number 39 and 40 are both MOUs with Star Care Specialty Health Systems. The first MOU is with the health department and their OZAR program, which is their outreach, assessment, and referral program, and that's really your first step to accessing substance use disorder services, and then you're transferred over to our case managers to help you. And then the second one is a MOU with their Padre program, which provides education and awareness around drugs and alcohol to parents.
Thank you, Ms. Wells. Other questions for Ms. Wells? Ms. Patterson-Harris, your light's on. Do you have a question? No. Okay. Mr. Griffith did that? Yeah, I figured he might have. Mr. Christian.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm the culprit to ask these be pulled, but I just thought it was so important for us to once again see how incredible our health department has continued to grow and provide services of all types to our citizens, because obviously they had their hands full with COVID, but it's just, I love this water on the rock kind of attitude with Catherine's leadership, that we just continually look for more opportunities to have things funded in our community. 38 and 40 were very interesting to me, because of it says at the last sentence of 738, excuse me, to provide funding to support and provide of substance use disorders treatments for pregnant women and women with dependent children. I think I don't need to say any more. And the last one, parenting, is, as Catherine said, parenting awareness of drug risk education program, the Padre, where it'll help parents have their antennas up a little bit, or I would think, would that be a kind of a kind way to say it, but it's
Yes,
so
sir.
important. The signs are there, but a lot of times we don't recognize them as parents. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Christian. Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you.
Mr. Christian, can I get a motion to begin for considering 734 through 740? That's a motion to approve, Mr. Christian? Okay, is there a second? I'll second. Thank you, Mr. Mastigal. Further conversation, questions, comments? Mr. Christian, I just want to thank you for your continued advocacy of this very important area, and particularly the substance abuse. We appreciate that. All those in favor of the motion on the floor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by that same sign? That motion carries 6-0. Okay, that concludes the consent agenda. We'll move now to our regular agenda. The regular agenda begins with item 8.1 on page 890. It's the second reading of our budget. And it would consider this action adopts the budget and all pieces that go along with it that we've been working on for the last 6 weeks or so. So let's get a motion to begin consideration. Then I'll give the city manager a moment to make a comment or two, and then we'll have questions and comments from staff. Is there a motion? Move to approve. Thank you, Mr. Mastigal. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Ms. Joy. Mr. Atkinson.
Mayor and council, first, on behalf of myself and the staff, I really want to thank you all for the time and for the effort that you've put into this. We began the journey in front of the council with your workshops. We have continued then without fail through the month of August. We've called a special meeting in September. We now find ourselves on the second meeting in September, which will ultimately adopt the budget. Second, really want to thank our staff. This year we had certainly a much better year doing budget than we did in the prior year. A lot of things were more known to us than where we stood last year in the middle of the pandemic. Council, submit to you that the staff that puts this together and brings it to you each year truly is the best that I've worked with in a very long time of doing this. So I want to thank them. That group's led by Blue Kostelich, Cheryl Brock. They're all hiding down here below the dais, but they're the ones that do the work and let us get it in front of you. The budget itself, it does contain a small tax increase, but it does that while still dropping the tax rate over 1.8 cents. This recognizes, in the budget this year, we talked about sales tax earlier, it recognizes the phenomenal energy that's in our community right now. It recognizes the growth. You'll see it later tonight as you look at your various zoning cases. We see it at every meeting. We see it in looking at a record year, building on top of a record year, as we look at permits. Our community is not 100% whole. We know those sectors that are lagging, but they're catching up. But by far and away, your community is thriving and it's growing, and the city's role is to make that possible. It's to support it. The budget in front of you does that. We've increased, our cash funding for street maintenance. We've had a small rate increase on a couple of our utilities, none of which have happened at least for 2 years, some of them for 4 years. It's a prudent budget. And I think most importantly, it recognizes and it takes care of our employees. Council, we've gone in great detail with where we stand with our ability to pull up a police department back up to where they need to be. It's not done. It's a process that we'll have to continually reevaluate and push forward. But would submit it's a major stride. Council, I'm also proud of what we have set forth in the budget for the remainder of our employees. So recall that it's built on the 4% average model, but the vast majority of your employees will get more than that. We're like every other business in town. We're hurting for employees, and that is in any department that you can find. This budget recognizes and rewards those that have gone 2 years without and have continued to serve. And I truly hope that it makes it where the help wanted sign will start filling up the doors again. So we look forward to that. Council, I've got the presentation. If you would like to see it, I would stand for any questions you may have otherwise.
Thank you, Mr. Atkinson. Council, I told Mr. Atkinson I thought we'd seen the presentation enough.
I thought I would get that
There's
reaction.
members of the gallery that have memorized it also, but I do, I do think that when you get to the second reading of the budget ordinance, it gets a bit anticlimactic, and it's really somewhat unfortunate because it culminates a lot of hard work, and so I'll open the microphone for anyone that has any comments before we consider this. Take it across the finish line, Councilman Christian says. It's a great budget. It addresses a lot of needs. I think everything from parks to streets to employees to the men and women who we rely on to protect us every day. And I'm very thankful for the budget, for the position we find ourselves in, and for the folks that go to work every day for the city of Lubbock serving our citizens. All right. After that brief soliloquy, we'll have I'll call the vote. In front of us, we have a motion and a second to approve the budget and capital plan for 2021-2022. All those in favor of that motion, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed by that same sign? That motion carries 6-0. Job well done. We'll now move to item 8.2. It's on page 937. It is a resolution ratifying the adoption of the 2021 budget, 2021-2022 budget that raises more tax revenue that was generated in the previous year. Council, is there a motion to begin consideration?
Move for approval.
Thank you, Mr. Griffith. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Joy. Got a motion and a second on item 8.2. Council, is there any discussion? All those in favor of the motion to approve item 8.2, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by that same sign? Motion carries 6-0. Item 8.3 is on page 940. This is an ordinance that sets the tax rate, and I need to get a motion from Mr. Griffith on this one. Jeff, can you help with that, please?
Yes. Thank you, Mayor. The tax rate motion language by the state of Texas legislature requires that I read this. I move that the property tax rate be increased by the adoption of a tax rate of 0.523230, which is effectively a 5.13% increase in the tax rate.
Thank you for that motion, Mr. Griffith. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Joy. Mr. Griffith, I'll go back to you. Do you have anything you'd like to add?
As Mr. Atkinson pointed out, Mayor, this does lower the tax rate 1.8 cents. And I agree that this is the right thing to do.
Thank you, Mr. Griffith. Are there further comments on this one? All right, we've got a motion and a second to approve the tax rate. All those in favor of that motion, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed by that same sign? Motion carries 6-0. Item 8.4 is related to the budget also. It allows us to do the allocation of the hot tax, hotel occupancy tax for 21 and 22. Is there a motion to begin consideration?
Move to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Maskell. Thank you, Mr. Griffith. Mr. Atkinson, any comments on this?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll go very quickly. This is contained in your budget. This is actually the second step. We have a local ordinance requires us to do it in 2 steps. Items of note. For the proposed budget year, 21-22, the total hot tax revenue is projected at $6.8 million. That's an increase of 1.2 million over the prior year. So that goes back to our comments of our community growing and recovering. The funds that are received from the hotel occupancy tax are divided on a percentage basis. Convention and Tourism Bureau, 42.38%. Civic Center Operations and Marketing, 27.87%. Visiting and Participatory and Spectator Sports Marketing, often called Lubbock Sports Authority, 13.81%. North Overton Tax Increment Finance Zone, Conference Center Debt Service, 4.9%. Civic Lubbock Allocation, 5.92%. Debt Service on the Buddy and Maria Elena Holly Plaza Debt Service, 1.34%. And the remainder is a transfer to your Civic Center Capital Improvement Program of 3.72%. That I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Atkinson. Council, are there questions for Mr. Atkinson on items 8.4? We've got a motion, Ms. Joy, I'm sorry. Excuse me.
Mr. Atkinson, the Holly Plaza, that's about paid for, is it not?
It is very close, yes.
Maybe a year or two?
I'm going to ask Ms. Brock. She probably has that right at the top of her tongue. If not, she has it. She is here. She's below the dais.
Mr. Joy, we're going to look it up for you, but it's
Okay.
more than a couple of years. It's just a very, very small debt payment annually. So I think it still has probably about five or 6 more years, somewhere around there.
Okay.
We'll get the direct answer.
Okay. And then on the North Overton TIF, that's the Hotel Conference Center debt?
That is correct.
Okay. And I understand it is nearing
That should have
full.
that should have close to less than 5 years, but we'll get that one as well.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Weaver, a 5-0 vote, so if we were to have a 5-0 vote on this, we're okay with that, is that correct? Okay. Okay, we've got a motion and a second to approve item 8.4. All those in favor of that motion, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed by that same sign? That motion carries 5-0. Mr. Christian had to step out for a moment. Okay, let's move now to item 8.5. And this is to consider a resolution adopting the electric rate and tariff. These items were included also in the budget. Let's get a motion and we'll have some discussion around this. Is there a motion to begin consideration? Mr. Mastrigo?
Move to approve.
Thank you, Steve. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Griffith. Mr. Atkinson.
Mayor and Council, Mr. Joe Jimenez is going to walk us through this item.
Good evening, Joe.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Yes, this is a resolution to approve our fiscal year 21-22 electric rate tariff, which has been approved by the Electric Utility Board and recommended to you all for your approval. They approved it on July 20th, 2021. There's no base rate increase to any of the rates in the tariff. And again, the only thing, the major change was just the substantial language change in there to, put definitions and more terms so it'd be more user-friendly, user-reader friendly.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jimenez. Are there questions for Joe? Thank you very much. Okay, Council, we have a motion and a second to approve item 8.5. Is there any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of that motion, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed by that same sign? That motion carries 6-0. All right, let's pause there. That finishes the budget. All right.
Mayor, that finishes the budget.
So please join me in a round of applause for a lot of really good work. Yeah. think Ms. Patterson-Harris wanted to keep it going a little longer, but we got it done, so. Yeah. Okay, let's move to item 8.6. It's on page 1072. This is an item to appoint two members to the Lubbock Reese Development Authority Board of Directors. Mayor Pro Tem, do you have a motion?
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to appoint George McMahan and John Hamilton to the Lubbock Reese Redevelopment Advisory Board.
Thank you, Mr. Massengale. Is there a second to that motion? Second. Thank you. Mr. Griffith, is there any discussion, council? All those in favor of the motion to approve or to appoint Mr. McMahan and Mr. Hamilton to the Lubbock Reese Redevelopment Board, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by that same sign?
And Mayor?
Becky, I'm sorry. I should have called on the city secretary on that one.
No, that's okay. There is a reappointment of John Ty there as well, if you can make another motion for that.
We'll get that with the second motion. Thank you
Yes,
for
sir.
catching that. So we've got, we have a motion to approve Mr. McMahan and Mr. Hamilton. We've got the positive votes. Are there any against that motion? Okay, that part, the two new appointments are, appointees are elected 6-0. Mr. Massengale, can you help me with a further motion on 8.6?
Certainly, Mayor. I'd also make a motion to reappoint Mr. John Ty to the Lubbock Reese Redevelopment Authority Board of Directors.
Thank you, Mr. Massengale, for that motion. Mr. Griffith for the second. Is there discussion on Mr. Ty's, the motion to reappoint Mr. Ty? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed by that same sign. Motion carries 6-0. Okay, council, we now have a couple sets of related items. 8.7 and 8.8 are related to the creation of a new public improvement district. Let me get to my script on this one so I can make sure we get it in the we're going to hear a public hearing or have a hold it period. We're going to have a public hearing tonight to consider the creation of the Northwest Passage Public Improvement District. That public hearing is required by local government code in Texas. Before we open the public hearing, I would like to ask Brianna Girardi to give the council a brief overview of this matter. Ms. Girardi.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Good to be with you again this evening. As the Mayor mentioned, we will be holding a public hearing for the creation of the Northwest Passage Public Improvement District and then asking for your approval on a creation resolution following the public hearing. You all should be familiar with this map. This is the one that you saw at your council meeting on August the 24th. And just as a reminder, the proposed Northwest Passage PID is directly north of our existing North Point PID at North Slide and Erskine. Quick reminder on the PID creation process and the things that are required by the state statute. We verified the petition provided by the developer for the Northwest Passage PID at your last meeting on August the 24th. There is one owner, so it's a lot easier to meet the requirements of the state statute when there's not multiple property owners. So it just required the single signature. And then following your approval on the 24th, we immediately turned around and published notice for public hearing in the Lubbock Avalanche Journal. That was posted on the 27th. We are required to post that public hearing notice the day before the 15th day of the public hearing. And so we met that requirement and then mailed that notice to the property owner as well. This slide outlines the various items that the public is able to speak about in favor or against during this public hearing. I will note that the property owner is with us tonight if you want to call him up, but I'm sure he will also speak during our public hearing. A couple of reminders about what they have planned in the Northwest Passage PID. The primary reason for the creation of this PID is going to be for some drainage improvements. There's some pretty significant infrastructure needed in this area, and so the PID will be used to help with the financing for those improvements. And then once those are completed and paid for, then the PID can design and construct parks and green space, water features, public art, similar things like that that the public would be able to take advantage of that live within the district. We estimate a cost of services over the course of the first 5 years after creation of the PID at just over $516,000. You have the boundaries of the PID here, and then we are proposing an assessment of 15 cents per $100 valuation through tax year 2026. Following this public hearing, you all will have an opportunity to approve that assessment rate, but just want to make sure the public knows what's being proposed for the district. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Girardi. Council, questions for Ms. Girardi? I thought you were reaching for your button, Ms. Joy. Okay. Your Kleenex, okay. Okay, thank you, Brianna.
Thank you.
All right, we'll now open the public hearing for item 8.7, the consideration of a public improvement district, creation of such for the Northwest Passage. I'll open the microphone to anyone that would like to speak either in favor or opposition of the creation of this PID. Good evening, Mr. McClendon.
Thank you, Council. My name is Mont McClendon. I live at 16th and Salem and work at 1500 Broadway. We talked a little bit about this PID on the 24th. Just wanted to mention to the Council, I'm for the PID. Let me get that out of the way. I think it's great. I'm asking for your vote. This is a continuing step in a long series of steps related to the development of this part of town. We started talking to the city about this part of town in regards to the drainage criteria manual. We've talked about it in regards to the MPO and the thoroughfare plan. We've talked about it through SEAC and all of the capacity improvement plans. We've talked about all the steps that we need to get into place. You'll notice as you look through that the first priorities, the first parts of this are for gross drainage, stormwater drainage, and then green space. Our anticipation is that land that is dedicated to moving water in a very un-Texan way, north and then east, ultimately will be green space for the district as a whole. But it's not limited to that. This PID is intended to live and serve all the purposes that a PID can maybe designed for. So we're trying to look forward as we develop this area for the city. So happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. McClendon. Ms. Joy?
Will this PID include residential and commercial? Kind of tell us a little.
All of those things. So initially, the developments that you will see you've already had some zone cases on the very southwest portion of this for both some commercial and residential. A continuation of some of the higher densities, the duplex type residential that's continued on in the Lincoln 16 projects that's just to the south. But ultimately, we'll be back here. I've got a meeting with the planning department next week to talk about some single family detached in that area and some commercial as well. It has hard corners at Quaker. It has hard corners at Frankfurt. It has hard corners all the way around Slide and Ursuline. So obviously, as part of the master plan, the comp plan, we talk about those as commercial nodes as well. So we want to make sure that we can service the households in that area with the amenities that they need as well. We've set aside and had conversations with Lubbock Independent School District about 2 locations for schools, an elementary and a middle school in that area as well. So really trying to build an overall community in that area and in your district.
That's right. How many, let's just talk about homes. How many homes would you estimate in this Northwest Passage PID?
So in the Northwest Passage portion of this, and we talked a little bit about the shape of this because a portion in the southeast quadrant is already in the North Point PID.
Right.
Taking that aside, we built the service models, I believe that you have an 8.8 on an assumption of 4,500 homes. So.
And then the portion that is of the North Point PID that you are completing, about what, 300 homes?
The first portion of that is 383 homes, I believe.
Okay.
And that doesn't take up the entirety of that quadrant, but it is the first portion of closest to Slide Road.
we really need commercial, we really need restaurants, we really need that, because there are lots of rooftops out there.
So I agree.
All right, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. McClendon. Any other speakers, either in favor or opposition to the creation of Northwest Passage PID? Okay, I'll close the public hearing. We'll move to item 8.8. Item 8.8 is a resolution to authorize the creation and establishment of the Northwest Passage Public Improvement District. Is there a motion to begin consideration?
Move to approve.
Thank you, Ms. Joy. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Mr. Griffith. Council, is there discussion on this motion? Questions for staff or discussion? We have a motion and a second to approve item 8.8. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. 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 Any opposed by that same sign? Motion carries 6-0. Okay, let's move to item 8.9. Item 8.9 is on page 1108. This is an item from planning that terminates a Chapter 212 agreement related to property located south of 34th Street and west of Upland Avenue. We're going to get a quick briefing on this, but before we do, is there a motion to begin consideration?
Move to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Maskell. Thank you, Ms. Joy. Ms. Sager, welcome back. Good to see you.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. As stated, this is a request from Beatonvo Homes to terminate a 212 development agreement on a property located south of 34th Street, west of Upland Avenue. This property was part of an involuntary annexation by the City of Lubbock in April of 2018. The property owner at that time opted to enter into the 212 agreement, so the property would not be annexed. The city was required to offer those agreements to any property which had an ag exemption with the Lubbock Central Appraisal District, and they are 5-year agreements. Beatonvo purchased the property in July of this year and planned to make it part of a new residential development within this area. And so they had submitted a preliminary plat showing their intent to develop the property and are now asking to terminate this agreement so the property can be annexed. And I'd be pleased to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Sager. Are there any questions for Kristen? Give you guys a moment to look this over. Ms. Joy, your light's on.
Kristen, did you say that initially was a 5-year agreement? Was that what it was?
Mm-hmm.
Because some of those agreements were longer, correct?
Correct. So the ones from the 2016 involuntary annexation are 20-year.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions for Ms. Sager? All right, thank you very much. Okay, Council, we've got a motion and second to approve item 8.9, terminating Chapter 212 agreement in the west side of town. All those in favor of that motion, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed by that same sign? Okay, that motion carries 6-0. Okay, so accompanying this motion is item 8.10. And 8.10 allows us to hold or ask us to hold a public hearing and then to consider an ordinance following Chapter 43 of the Texas Local Government Code to annex the same property that we were just discussing. So we will get a quick briefing from staff, hold a public hearing, and then consider this item. Ms. Sager.
Thank you. So this would be the first reading of the ordinance to annex of the property. If approved, we'll bring the second reading of the ordinance at the next meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Sager. Councilors, are there questions for Ms. Sager on this one? Mr. Atkinson, do you have something to add to this?
Quick question, Kristen. If we should annex this, what would it come into the city? How would it be zoned?
It would be zone transition.
Okay.
And Beatonvo already has a zone case in the works to rezone this property along with the surrounding property for a new residential development.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Ms. Sager? Okay, thank you very much, Kristen. I'll open the public hearing for item 810. The local government code requires a public hearing for the city council to consider the annexation of property. At this time, we will open that public hearing in regard to the annexation of an area approximately 7.867 acres out of Section 39, Block AK, south of 34th Street and west of Upland Avenue. Is there anyone who wishes to speak either against or in favor of this annexation? If so, please come forward. Anyone that would like to speak either in support of or against this annexation? Okay, this public hearing is now closed. Council, is there a motion to approve the ordinance to annex this property?
Move to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Massigo. Is there a second? Thank you, Mr. Christian. Discussion, council. Questions for staff or discussion? Okay. All those in favor of the motion to annex this property, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed to that? Please say aye by the very same, or nay by, say nay. Got lost there. Okay, that motion carries 6-0. All right, item 811 is on page 1154. It is comes from our finance group regarding water and wastewater system revenue bonds. Let's get an overview on this from Mr. Koslich before we take any next steps. Blue?
All right, thank you, Mayor Council. Tonight, we're asking you to approve an ordinance to allow us to issue bonds via the Texas Water Development Board. This is for the Lowhead C project. This is for the actual pump station. Now, Mayor and Council, if you'll recall, this was a project that we really started getting off the ground over 2 years ago. During that process, in our application with the Water Development Board, which took about a year of negotiations, they determined that part of the project, the actual pipeline, was not eligible for the funding. However, the pump station was, so we split that project in two. We did the funding through water revenue bonds for the actual pipeline, and now we've finally gotten through the Water Development Board approval for this project, for the funding for this pump station. So with that, Mayor, Council, I'm going to turn it over to our financial advisor, Mr. Matt Bowles.
Thank you, Mr. Koslich, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Good evening. I'm glad to be back in Lubbock today to close out another, what I think is very economical financing here. And I want to talk about that, and I always start off, as you will recall, with a little bit of information about the marketplace. However, this transaction is being privately placed with the Texas Water Development Board at subsidized rates. So the market has something to do with that rate, but it's subsidized, so I won't spend as much time on the market. But I do think it's important just to remind you all and the constituents of the city of Lubbock the season that we rest in, and that is one that is marked by incredibly low rates of interest and ostensibly driven by the need to provide liquidity to the market through a pandemic that we're still working through, and the need to accommodate certain policies of Congress and other matters. And we've got some of that highlighted for you here on page 3. But I just wanted to remind you all that we are in a world where we don't produce enough municipal bond product. We have more demand than we have supply, and the sheer economics of that, in addition to monetary policy and some of the fiscal policy that has driven rates so low, has created really the perfect, incredibly nice storm for issuers like the city of Lubbock. And you've taken advantage of that most recently with your pricing of your Lubbock Power and Light revenue bonds to refinance the cost of getting into ERCOT. You've done it with your normal certificate of obligation issuance by the city. You always avail yourselves of the opportunity to refinance your debt and take cost savings. And here again, we're able to use that on this project for the Lowhead C pump transaction that's being placed with the Texas Water Development Board. Lower left-hand corner, just to remind you, this is my Dow Jones. This is AAA MMD. It's a yield curve that I monitor every day. It was published just moments ago. And the dark blue line at the top is the 15-year average. And then the two lines that you see intertwined at the bottom here are where we sit today and where we sat a year ago today. And it just has not changed. Monetary policy on the short end of the curve hasn't changed, and policy with respect to buying bonds in the longer and intermediate portion of the curve hasn't changed. There's discussion of that, but it hasn't yet changed, and so rates are quite low. And we had an interesting inflation print this morning that caused the stock market, unfortunately, to decline, I think, 300 on the Dow and 5 basis points lower on the U.S. Treasury. So we continue to fight our way through some of these times, and I just, I like this graph again. 99.2% of the time, rates have been higher since 1961 on muni land, so it's just an incredible time to be in the market. As Mr. Kostelich said earlier and teed up for me, you all undertook this project a couple of years ago. We did have to go back on a bifurcated basis and resubmit the application for the low head sea pump portion of the larger project. We applied to the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund program of the Texas Water Development Program. And again, that is a subsidized rate. So essentially they have some monies that are funded through the state, through the Water Development Board, that they use to buy down the rate on these transactions. And you qualified and were approved at their meeting on September the 7th, where they set the rate. You're actually approved on the 22nd of July. They set the rate on the 7th of September. And there's a bullet point here that's 4 from the top, and I should have highlighted this because I think this says a whole lot about the economics of the transaction. If you consider this subsidized rate and what you will pay on the Water Development Board loan up against what would have happened had you sold a publicly offered debt transaction, the city will save right at $1.5 million over the life of the 20-year loan. So it's not insignificant. It is a wonderful program, and I'm really happy that you all stuck with it, made the bifurcated application or amended application in this case, and got qualified. We'll close the transaction on October the 14th, should you approve tonight. And here's some statistical information for you. The debt service is on the right-hand side of the page. It's a level principal amortizing loan over a 20-year period. So you'll pay back principal of $525,000 a year. The average coupon, you can see the coupon increases as you go throughout the structure. The average coupon is 1.005%. And then once you factor in the cost of doing the transaction, the all-in true interest cost, which think of it as the APR with costs included, is 1.283%. And that will fund the project of $10.174 million. So,
Mr. Bowles, I just want to interrupt. I think when you were here last time, we told you to bring something back better this time, and you did. I just want to make sure that we recognize that.
That's on the next page.
Okay.
I'm kidding. I don't have a page for that. But no, it's incredible, and it's a sign of the times, and B, it's really good policy from the state water planning standpoint of the Texas Water Development Board. I think they do a really nice job, particularly with some programs like this. We see the subsidized rate just beat the socks off the publicly offered market quite often, and so we're happy to see this work out for you all. So with that, I'll take questions. This is an action item for you all to adopt the ordinance issuing these obligations tonight. Thank you.
Okay. Anything for Mr. Bowles? Questions for Mr. Bowles? Okay, thanks, Matt.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
I think we need a motion to begin consideration of this. Is there a motion? Ms. Joy?
Move to approve.
Thank you very much. Is there a second? Thank you, Mr. Christian. Mr. Atkinson, explain just a little bit more about our relationship with the Texas Water Development Board. If people have followed us closely, they know that several years ago we got a $35 million 0% interest loan, which we're still executing some of that work in the northwest part of town. But just explain why it exists and what our relationship with them is and why that's significant, if you would, please.
Glad to do that, glad to do that. The Texas Water Development Board is, of course, a state agency, as you would expect. It's a very unique agency. I think oftentimes the public knows them through their role in providing water data, hydrological data, implementing the state water plans. They've had that charge since 1997. They've done a great job of that. They're a technical resource that's available. But their largest book of business, the Texas Water Development Board, is actually a financing agency. In that role, they manage numerous different programs. They have the state revolving loan funds. They have your various federal funds. Also, those are revolving loan funds. They have the ability to issue bonds through their credit, which will buy down the cost for other entities. That's what we're doing here today. The mayor mentioned a project that we did, I think it was in 2017 maybe when we received those dollars, may have been 2018. They will fund drainage projects. They often are able to do that at little or nothing. In our case, they funded a $35 million project for the city of Lubbock and did so at 0% interest. They're an excellent agency. They work under a commission form of governance. They've been our partner for a long time, and we look forward to them being our partner well into the future.
Thank you, Mr. Atkinson. Council, any questions for Mr. Atkinson or questions on this item? Okay, we've got a motion and a second to approve this ordinance regarding water and wastewater system revenue bonds. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed by that same sign? Okay, that motion carries 6-0. All right. Council, beginning with zone case 812 and going through case 822, these are second reads of zone cases that we considered 3 weeks ago. We're going to have Ms. Sager go through these at a real high level. We'll need to consider 822 separately. Other than that, once we've gotten the briefing from Ms. Sager, we'll talk about how we want to handle the others. So we'll start, Kristen, with zone case 2538U on page 212 in our agenda.
Thank you. Zone case 2538U is a zone change request from single-family residential R1 to two-family residential R2. We sent out 9 notifications and received 1 in favor and 1 in opposition. This aerial view gives you a view of where this property is located, north of 19th Street, west of Quincy Avenue. The planning staff recommended approval of this request, as did the Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council on the first reading of the ordinance.
So, council, any questions on item 812? Okay, Ms. Sager, let's go to item 813, zone case 2904G. It's on page 1231.
2904G is a request for a specific use for a temporary telecommunications tower on property zoned interstate highway commercial. We sent out 16 notifications and received 1 in favor and none in opposition. This property is located west of University Avenue and southeast of Santa Fe Drive. Staff recommended approval, as did the Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council on the first reading.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Sager. Council, questions on item 813? All right, let's go to item 814, zone case 2951A on page 1247.
Case 2951A is a zone change request from High Density Apartment District A2 to single-family residential R1. We sent out 36 notifications, received 10 in favor, none in opposition. This property is located west of Frankfurt Avenue, north of 110th Street. Staff recommended approval, as did the Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council on the first reading.
Okay, council, anything on 814? All right, Ms. Sager, let's move to 815, zone case 3023A on page 1271.
Case 3023A was a request to amend the site plan and conditions of ordinance 2004-009 0120. We sent out 18 notifications and received none in favor or in opposition. This property is located west of Avenue Q and south of Marcia Sharp Freeway. Staff recommended approval, as did the Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council on first reading.
Thank you, Ms. Sager. Council, any questions on item 815? Okay, we'll go to item 816, zone case 3175F on page 1289.
Case 3175F is a zone change from high-density apartment district A2 to single-family residential with reduced setbacks, R1A, and restricted local retail district, C2A. We sent out 15 notifications and received 1 in favor and none in opposition. This property is located north of Erskine. Staff recommended approval of the request, as did the Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council on first read.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Sager. Council, any questions on 816? Okay, let's go to item 817, zone case 3257L. It's on page 1306.
Case 3257L is a zone change from single-family residential R1 specific use to garden office, GO. We sent out 2 notifications and received none in favor or in opposition. This property is located east of Indiana Avenue and south of 140th Street. Staff recommended approval, as did the Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council on first read.
Thank you, Ms. Sager. Council, any questions on item 817? Okay, Ms. Sager, let's go to item 818, zone case 3308C. It's on begins on page 1321.
3308C is a zone change from single-family residential R1 and R1 specific use, general retail district C3, and industrial park district IDP to high-density apartment district A2. We sent out 14 notifications and received 1 in favor and none in opposition. This property is located south of 19th Street, east of Upland Avenue. Staff recommended approval, as did the Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council on first read.
Thank you, Ms. Sager. Council, any questions on 818? Okay, let's move to 819, zone case 3439. Begins on page 1339.
Case 3439 is a zone change from transition to family apartment district A1 and local retail district C2. We sent out 11 notifications and received 1 in favor and 1 in opposition. This property is located west of Milwaukee Avenue and south of 104th Street. Staff recommended approval, as did the Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council on first read.
Okay, thank you, Kristen. Council, any questions on 819? Okay, we'll go to item 820, zone case 3440. It begins on page 1360.
Case 3440 is a zone change from garden office to local retail district C2. We sent out 6 notifications, received none in favor or in opposition. This property is located east of Quaker Avenue, south of 140th Street. Staff recommended approval, as did the Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council on first read.
Thank you, Ms. Sager. Council, questions on item 820? Okay, let's move to item 821, zone case 3441. It begins on page 1376.
Case 3441 is a zone change from transition and industrial park district to two-family district R2, restricted local retail district C2A, and general retail district C3 with a specific use for a self-storage facility. This property is located east of Upland Avenue, north of 50th Street. Staff recommended approval, as did the Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council on first read.
Thank you, Ms. Sager. Council, any questions on item 821? Okay, we'll move now to item 822, zone case 3442. It begins on page 1393. Ms. Sager?
Case 3442 is a zone change from transition and interstate highway commercial to IHC with a planned development district. We sent out 25 notifications, received 3 in favor and none in opposition. This property is located north of 82nd Street, southeast of Marcia Sharp Freeway. Here is the concept plan for this planned development district, as well as some renderings. Staff recommended approval of this request, as did the Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council on first read.
Thank you, Ms. Sager. Council, any questions on 8.22? Okay, don't go far, Kristen. We could call you back. Okay, Council, how do you want to consider items 812 through 821? Okay, Ms. Patterson-Harris, take that as a motion to approve? Okay, I got a motion from Ms. Patterson-Harris, a second from Mr. Massengale. So that's zone cases 8, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and 21, all second reads. Councilor, is there discussion on any of these? Okay, we've got a motion on the floor to approve items 812 through 821 on second read. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed by the same sign. Motion carries 6-0. I'll call up item 822. It begins on page 1393. I'm going to pass the gavel to the Mayor Pro Tem. I need to recuse on this item.
Thank you, Mayor. Council, the next and final item on our agenda tonight is item 822. It's zone case 3442. It's on page 1393. Before we begin discussion, is there a motion on this item? Thank you, Mr. Griffith. Thank you, Mr. Christian. We've already been briefed by staff on this item. Are there any questions or discussion on item 822? Hearing none, all those in favor of item 822, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, like sign. Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I believe that takes care of our business for the evening. Ms. Garza, are we good with you?
Yes, sir, it does. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Weaver? Okay. Council, thank you very much. Staff, thank you very much for all your hard work. We'll be back with you in 2 weeks, by the way. We get a break, and be back on the 28th. Same bat channel, same bat time. That dates me. It's a great day in Lubbock, Texas. It's 6:18. We're adjourned.